Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are having a great week so far. So today I'm going to be doing a review of the new Natasha Denona Tan palette. As soon as I saw the pictures of this, as in the teaser pictures, you know, this is launching soon, I was like, I need it. I need to have it. I immediately had it added on my calendar for this is getting purchased. This is getting purchased in May. To hell with the budget, because it was literally exactly up my street. And I knew I had to have it. Though I really felt like the Bloom palette, I had it on my list for so long and I just never picked it up. And I now know it was because I was waiting for this one, because this is just much more my tones and preference for this type of palette. So I think this will work better on my skin tone than the Bloom palette, and I think just the shades in here are more suited to me, my preference, my skin tone. I'm also really excited to take this with me on holiday because I love a cream highlight on holiday and I need a deeper bronzer once I get tanned, and that's kind of hard to find for me with my undertones and things like that. To find a bronzer that will work for me now and that will work for me once I get back from holiday is kind of tricky. Same thing with highlighters. So this kind of gave me something that I felt I didn't really have. I mean, of course I have bronzers and highlighters, we all do, but I just wanted it all right. So to compare this just briefly for you with the Charlotte Tilbury Lovegasm face palette. Now I have mine in the shade Lovegasm. I'm not going to be doing a half face of each because I have already fully reviewed this one and I want to be able to show you everything in here all over my whole face. So there's that. But I do want to compare, if you are just thinking which one do I need, which one is more for me, I just want to give you a little bit of info on the two. So they are pretty different, I would say. I think they're both kind of tiered towards the medium to tan skin bracket. Here they are side by side and you can see that the Lovegasm palette is significantly bigger. The pans are bigger, and obviously the biggest difference between these two palettes is that the Lovegasm has two blushes, whereas the Natasha Denona is literally a bronze and glow kit, whereas the Lovegasm is a bronze, glow and blush kit, so it does give you that extra element. They both have fantastic size mirrors. The Charlotte Tilbury is that gel hybrid formula, so it is more of a buildable formula. There is no kickback, it's not powdery at all. The Natasha Denona has one cream and then 3 powder formulas. So you will get some kickback, and it will be one where, you know, there's more pigment in there and you'll get more colour payoff initially and then blend it out, as opposed to building it straight up. So again, depends on your preference for working with those formulas. In the Charlotte Tilbury palettes you get 4 pans that are all the same size at 3.8 grams, which gives you a total of 15.2 grams. In the Natasha Denona palette, all of the pans have a different weight to them. Obviously they're different formulas, so that probably explains why. I would imagine that the size of the pan, as in, you know, it's square millimeters, is the same, but the weight of the products is different because they're 4 different formulas. So the glow cream base is 2.8, the blush and bronze powder is 2.5, the super glow is 3.5, and the glow impact powder is 3.2, giving you a total of 12 grams of product versus 15.2. So this one you are getting more product, but it is more expensive, so it's kind of like for like as far as pounds for grams. It's very close. But I will say that the Natasha Denona, when it comes to the formula, you are likely to go through this quicker than this one because you use such a small amount of product in here, because there's no powderiness, no kick up, no kickback, no, you know, powder flying off into the atmosphere. Everything is going on your face, whereas with this one you will get some kickback and some kick up from the powders in there. So I do think if that's important to you, then the Charlotte Tilbury is probably going to offer you a better deal. The bronzers in both of these palettes are actually fairly similar. At the bottom this is the Charlotte Tilbury and at the top is the Natasha Denona. The Natasha definitely has a slightly rosier undertone and is more matte, whereas the Charlotte Tilbury is more of a luminous bronzer and doesn't have that sort of rosy tone. It's kind of a little bit warmer. And here are the 3 powders from the Natasha palette. This is the cream base, this is the Super Glow, and then this is the Glow Impact powder, and this is the highlight from the Charlotte Tilbury palette. So they're all, as you can see, very wet, very high shine. Obviously the cream is kind of less pigmented and it's wetter, but these 3 are, they look a very similar formula. They're all very wet, very luminous, very sort of non-sparkly, glittery, more wet, glowy, dewy kind of formulas. So they are all very beautiful highlights, and they kind of, these 3 for me, look like they're a very similar formula. So I will say that if you have one of the Charlotte Tilbury palettes, I don't think you need this one. We certainly don't need this one. If you already have this one, it's giving you bronzer, highlight and blushes, whereas this one is just bronzer and highlights. The bronzers are going to be performing similarly. They're both beautiful bronzers. The highlights are all beautiful, gorgeous highlights. The packaging is glorious on both. So it's really down to you as far as formula, as far as amount of product, and as far as how much you are a blush lover as to which palette is for you. Do you need both if you already have this one? Of course not, of course not. So without further ado, let's whack it on my face and see how we get on. So here is the palette nice and up close. It's exactly the same layout and what you would expect from what we saw in the Bloom palette. It has this little flip up plastic screen that protects the cream from any of the powders getting in there, which I think is awesome. And you've got your 4 pans, your bronzer, your glow cream, and then your 2 highlight powders here. I will say that the pans in here are definitely a smaller size than the Charlotte Tilbury palette, the Lovegasm palette. If you see with my MAC 135, it's a pretty small sized pan, but it's certainly big enough to get, you know, a normal sized, decent sized brush in there. I love the packaging. You guys know that I am a packaging fiend. It makes a big difference to me. I just love really luxurious, beautiful packaging, and this is definitely that. It looks and feels very expensive, which is what you want when something is expensive. So I'm going to start off as per Natasha's instructions with the blush and bronzer powder. I'm immediately seeing some kick up in the bronzer powder. I just pressed lightly my brush in there, did not swirl, and there's a fair bit of kick up in there, which is obviously very different to what we see from the Charlotte Tilbury palette. Basically what the kick up means, there's no issue with it. It means that it's pigmented, it means it's going to be fairly easy to blend, and it's going to be one that packs a punch and you need to blend out. That's generally what I expect when I see kick up. So I'm going to start off with a light hand and build it up, because very powdery products, not that it is very powdery, it's just powdery. Can you see that? So that's the difference between this and like the Charlotte Tilbury, because with that one you weren't going to get any over application, you aren't going to get any kick up because of that gel hybrid formula. But this is blending so easily, it's not going to cause you an issue at all. It's just absolutely easy peasy to blend, and it's definitely possible to use a light hand. Like I'm going in just lightly dabbing, and it's just giving me the perfect amount. It's not going to take much building up. It's going to be more of a, you know, application and then a sort of blending out. So it's kind of like the opposite of what you get with the Charlotte Tilbury, where you're never going to use too much, that really buildable formula, that gel hybrid formula that you'll need to build. This one, it's going to be kind of like the opposite. You're going to need a light hand if you're more medium skin. If you have deeper skin, of course you could use a heavier hand and blend it out, because it is so blendable. But there's definitely lots of kick up happening in here. So yeah, you're definitely going to go through this a lot quicker than you would go through the Charlotte Tilbury, because you're just not getting any waste with that one. Nothing is going anywhere, there's no kick up, nothing's going into the air, nothing's needed to be blended away. Everything is just going on your skin. It is a really beautiful tone, and I think this is going to be gorgeous on like medium to deeper skin tones. I think on lighter skin tones it's going to be too muddy. I'm probably kind of on the verge of right now where this will work with the perfect tone. Obviously everyone's different with what they prefer. With bronzers, some people like cooler bronzers, some people like warmer bronzers. It's totally up to you, your preference. But for me, I kind of like something in the middle. And as I get more tanned while I'm on my holidays and just over summer, this will still work for me, and it'll work, I'd say, even better when I'm more tanned. It's that gorgeous rosy colour, and it's kind of sculpting me as well because it's not that warm, it's a more sort of neutral rosy undertone, so it's kind of giving me a bit of a contour and bronze in one. The finish is beautiful. You know I'm not a huge fan of super matte products, and I feel like this is pretty matte, but it's a very natural matte finish. So I've seen everybody applying the cream with a sponge pretty much, but I just want to see how it goes with my fingers. Oh my god, this feels like, this cream feels so different to what I was expecting. It's like, it just feels so smooth, like absolute silk. Okay, so yeah, that is definitely there. I feel like with a finger it's more pigmented or more intense than what I've seen people using a sponge, which I guess you'd expect because a sponge is probably going to, you know, control the application. I'm using the teeniest, tiniest little touch in there, and it's definitely going a long way. That is so pretty. This is exactly what I wanted this palette for, really, is these two initial products, because going on holiday I know my skin is going to really tan a lot because that's what my skin does, and this kind of glow cream is just the perfect, you know, nice sheer glowy skin, and it's the right sort of tone for my undertone. I think a lot of the highlighters that I have at the moment are leaving a cast on my skin because they're too light for me now that I'm starting to tan. But this is just beautiful. It almost just looks like dewy but sheer, like it doesn't really have a colour to it on the skin. It just looks like dew. So I'm kind of tempted to do the Super Glow on one side and the Impact Powder on the other, because I feel like everyone always applies them on top of each other, which is what Natasha says to do, but I feel like then it's hard to see what the powders are doing, so I'm just going to be different, you know, why not? So I'm going to go in with the Super Glow on this side, on top of that cream, and then we'll be able to see a comparison with the cream versus the Super Glow on top. I just feel like Natasha's highlights, they just don't add texture. I don't feel like this is adding any texture. It's just wet and glow, like it's really not exaggerating texture, which for a highlight is pretty impossible. It just looks wet and glowy, but it doesn't look glittery or shimmery. I feel like her highlights are kind of like grown-up highlights, if you see what I mean, with like minimal glitter in there, minimal exaggeration of texture and pores and things like that. That is so pretty. So here is just the bronzer and the glow cream base. And on this side is the bronzer, the glow cream base and the Super Glow on the top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add that final product, the Glow Impact Powder, which is this one with the texture on. I'm going to add that over the top on the other side. This one seems a little more firmly pressed because it's not picking up as much product on the brush, and it's not kicking up either. So this one's definitely adding a little bit more as far as texture on the skin, I would say. I would probably, for a day to day, I'd probably mix the two. That'll be probably what I do. I would just tend to mix the two together because I definitely don't really see the point in adding 4 products on top of each other. That doesn't make much sense to me. I just tend to have like one highlight product. I will often just use the cream on its own, I think, because I think that's perfect. So on this side we've got the bronzer plus the cream base and then the Glow Impact powder on top. And then on this side is the bronzer, the Glow cream base and the Super Glow on the top. They kind of give a similar effect in the end. I'd say that this one is kind of better for my skin tone, like this combination at the moment. I don't know, it's very hard. I definitely think this side looks more wet and dewy. This side looks more like highlight. I think it's slightly more exaggerating my texture, and it doesn't look quite as natural as this side. And that's, I just think, the texture of the powder. Okay, so now I'm just going to go in with the Glow Impact powder above my brow, because this is the lighter of the two shades. I feel like this is more suited to like the other areas of my face right now. When I'm a bit more tanned, or if you have deeper skin, you might want to use the Super Glow powder, you know, down your bridge of your nose, places like above your brow arch where you want it to make sure that it's kind of matching up with your skin tone. When I get a bit more tanned, I might either mix them together or switch to the other one, but for now I think the Glow Impact is kind of perfect for those other places. Really pretty above the brow and down the nose. Just blends really nicely. You could also just use the cream in all those places as well. So I've zoomed you in a little bit because now I want to use the bronzer on my eye to see how it performs there. Because for me, these products really come into their own when you can also use them on the eye, because it just makes it really travel friendly, really holiday friendly, makes everything more worth the money if you can use it on the eye as well as on the cheek. Definitely works beautifully on the eyes, this bronzer, and that for me really is important. I just love using bronzer as like the first step on my eyes these days, because I just think it makes everything look really seamless and go together beautifully and more naturally when you're matching up to the tones on your face with your eyes as well. And now I'm going to use my MAC 242 and I'm going to go into the Super Glow, which is the darker of the two highlight powders. Not a damp brush, just a regular dry brush, and just going to kind of blend that in the middle of the lid for a bit of a glow. Very natural, low-key eye look today. And that looks so pretty there. It's just super easy, you know, gonna go with everything. Okay guys, so we are back. I've got my lashes on. As you can see, I am loving this palette. I love the bronzer tone. I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I definitely have seen this working just gloriously on deeper skin. So I know, like, as I get tanned, this is still really going to work for me. I've also seen this used on like up to an NC 50 in MAC. So if you have deep skin, much deeper than me, it's still going to work for you. All of the highlight shades are going to work for you. A slightly heavier hand with the bronzer is going to work beautifully for you. I think it's just, it's beautiful. I didn't have any issues with anything. The cream hasn't lifted anything up underneath. The glow powders sit beautifully on the skin. As far as highlights go, they're not exaggerating texture. They're not giving me any problems with, you know, leaving a cast. I do think people with fair to light skin won't enjoy this as much. I think it is definitely more tiered to a medium plus skin tone, but I think it's absolutely beautiful. If you are torn between these two palettes, it's very, very hard. I love them both. Obviously the Charlotte Tilbury is limited edition and it is a few pounds more, but you are getting a few grams more, as we talked about at the beginning. It also gives you the option of those blushes in there, and I think this will work on lighter skin tones than this one will. So it's really up to you whether you want blushes or not. If you love blush, you love the blushes in here, you have more of a light to medium skin tone, go for this one. If you have a deeper skin tone, you could take or leave a blush. You don't need a blush, then I would say go for this one. I actually prefer the bronzer in here, I think, although I'm still obviously new to this one. But again, this bronzer is more luminous versus this one, which is more matte. So it's really going to be your personal preference. But I guess the biggest divider is the addition of blush in this palette. So it's really up to you as to how much you need blush in your life. I know for me, I do need blush. I need blush every single day. As soon as I finish making this video, I'm going to go and put some blush on because I don't know what to do with myself without blush on my cheeks. So there's that. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye.